Being very entitled and controlling, narcissists have no difficulty stepping all over your personal boundaries. So that's why I put together an extensive video class called This Is Me. It has 25 videos, written documents, guided questions. I'm going to teach you how to have healthy boundaries. There's a link below, and I hope you'll find it to be quite therapeutic. One of the most common things that can happen when you have a long-standing relationship with somebody who's severely narcissistic is you can have what we call a trauma bond with that individual. The pain and the frustration and the hurt is what binds you to that person, and it's a very debilitating way to live. And there can come a time when you decide, I don't want to be bonded to that individual. This person can be someone who has betrayed you many times over. It can be somebody who is not at all bashful about humiliating you. There can be a lot of abusive behavior inside the relationship with some of these narcissists. Dishonesty can reign, manipulation as well. The narcissist will refuse to be responsible for their end of the equation. Lots of insults, and then there's just a lot of unfinished conflict that just hangs in the air. And you can decide, you know what? Not only is this not fair, not only is this disgusting, but I'd like to teach that person a lesson. I'd like to give them a taste of their own medicine. And one of the things that can happen is you will want to seek revenge as you make your decision to move away from that kind of relationship. And I get it. I understand that you would like for them to have to pay, but I want to see if we can approach that topic with a real sense of caution. Now, before we get there, I do want to read you some illustrations that I've jotted down, real life, by the way, and it's important for you to know that the illustrations I'm going to give you are true because I'm hoping you can see that I'm not just talking about theory. I'm talking about real people who have real issues that are very difficult, and that might actually include you. It's not wrong for you to struggle at the fact that these narcissistic individuals create a contemptuous atmosphere. They show gross disregard for you, and it's not wrong for you to say, I'm sick of it. I want them to pay. Let me give you some illustrations of how this can play out, and you might have some of your own. First, one person says, I went no contact with my mother 4 years ago, and she made it her goal to alienate me from as many people as possible. She's hate-filled and a disgusting human being. It's as though she finds great satisfaction bringing people down, including me, her own daughter, bringing down anyone who dares to live and think differently from her. I would absolutely love to give her a taste of her own medicine. Another person writes, my girlfriend and I lived together for 4 years right after she got pregnant with our son. We broke up because of the daily conflict and her outrageous need to control me. It brought out the worst in me, being with someone so angry all the time. In the 12 years since, she has smeared me to my son, and we go to court at least 2 to 3 times per year over petty issues. She's relentless in wanting to bring me down. I hate her, and I know this world would be a better place if she was no longer in it. Another person says, my own brother kicked my dog so hard it broke her ribs. He's a chronic liar, so he denies it despite the evidence. He's always been the family member who ruined holidays and created discord. I cannot look at his face without becoming upset. He's brought so much misery to anyone who draws near. I'd like to see him get what he has coming. And what's worse, he still remains such an arrogant person. So you see, when you have situations like this, and perhaps some of the, like I say, you can have some similar ones, there's this notion or this question that can arise, and that is, are you wrong for feeling so strongly that you'd like to have some sort of retribution and payment extracted from that wrongdoer? Let's realize your feelings are not wrong, But let's also recognize when you're dealing with a narcissist, particularly someone who's that strong-willed and that destructive, you're actually playing with fire. And so I strongly recommend a very cautious approach toward revenge. Let's remember a few things about that narcissistic person. You see, to them, relationships represent a competition. And anytime that you come against them, they will take it as a challenge to win over you. Destruction is their game, and they can be very forceful in the way that they respond if you come after them in a retaliatory kind of way. And I think you have to ask yourself, well, is that what I want? Is that what I'm seeking? Narcissists likewise lack humility. Now, this means that hardly anything is going to prompt them to admit the faults that they have contributed to, or that they carry on the inside, and the difficulties they've contributed to in the relations, and adjustments are very, very unlikely from this individual. You need to keep that in mind. Also, let's remember that narcissists operate with a great deal of denial. They have a very, very tight defensive structure. So when you come after them and you say, you are going to pay and I'm going to make you sorry for whatever it is you've done, they're going to come back with the presumption that whatever difficulty has been there between you and that person is your fault. They're going to claim the victim status, and in their victimization, they're going to be like a wounded animal that just comes at you with a vengeance. That's how they think. And it's perverted, but nonetheless, it's deeply entrenched, particularly the further you go down that pattern or the spectrum of narcissism. In addition, narcissists are committed to their own anger. It's kind of sad to even just think like that. Anger is like an old friend that they go back and pick up on whenever they need that friend to help them destroy someone else. And so they live with an ongoing, perpetual undertow of contempt toward anyone who comes against them. So if you try to come against them with your own version of vengeance, that's what you're going to be greeted with. And you can see, just based on what I'm saying here, it can be a formula for disaster. Now, let's take a look at some things that you might want to consider as you are trying to come to terms with the emotion that is clearly generated with this. And that is, you can, if you go too heavy in the effort to have revenge, you can potentially imitate the very worst aspects of behavior that the narcissist stands for. In other words, they're going to be harsh and mean. You can be harsh and mean. They're going to be caustic and destructive, and you can become caustic and destructive. And frankly, I don't want that person setting my pace. I don't want to imitate the very thing that I say I don't like. And let's keep in mind that in the narcissist mind that you have a very low level of credibility. And so knowing that, like I said a minute ago, you're not going to penetrate their tight defensiveness. And so you can be prone to greater angst and anxiety as you continue to push an agenda back onto them. The more intensely you seek vengeance, actually, the more held captive you will be. In other words, you remain tethered to that individual. It's like you just can't move on until you get that person to see the light and to squirm and all as badly as you have. But in doing so, it's like, yeah, you and me, we're a team in a backwards, dysfunctional kind of way. And then, frankly, the more you go after revenge, the more it drains your capacity to live well with healthy individuals. You find yourself, sometimes you can become so obsessed with making that person life miserable that you are not at all the kind of person that you want to be in terms of having goodness and decency. And then we're just going to invoke the old saying, and I know it sounds cliche, but there's a truth to it, and that is, two wrongs don't make a right. If they want to destroy you, and you say, well, I'm going to destroy them, what you have is mutual destruction, and it's not a good ending. The greatest misconception that people can have when they choose not to go after vengeance is they may say, well, then that means that the narcissist wins. They get away with it. And in a certain way, we might say, well, to the narcissist, they may interpret it as that. But let's remember, this is not a competition. And as far as I'm concerned, they're not winners and losers in a relationship. And if that's the way the narcissist wants to set the relationship up to be, then that's something I don't want to have anything to do with. Now, let's keep in mind that it's not inappropriate to seek consequences and to establish your boundaries and to establish your stipulations. There simply are times when you'll let it be known, if you do A, then I'm going to respond with B, and it may be that it's a removal of privileges, or it's going to be a moving away from the interaction with that individual, and if possible, if the abuse is so much that you can actually bring in other individuals, whether it's legal or social, that would create a sense of accountability. That's completely legitimate. So I'm not saying just lay down and let them walk all over you. You do want to enact consequences. But then let's also recognize that you'll need to be resigned to a certain truth, and it's an unfortunate one. But that truth is, this is a broken world, and sometimes that brokenness simply will not be fixed. And the last thing you want to do is to perpetuate your own broken responses to someone who doesn't do life very well at all. So, all of that said, I'm hoping that in your mind, you can decide, the best way for me to respond, and again, this can sound cliche-ish, is to have your own good character. I'm hoping that you can observe what you've had with that person in front of you and recognize the errors of the ways of narcissism. And I'm hoping you can commit yourself to things like goodness and honor and integrity and balance and peace and love. Those ingredients are still available, and that's not something a narcissist is going to be able to match pitch with, but it's your way of saying, you do not have control over me. I'm committed to my own sense of decency. That is the best revenge. Now, I hope that a video such as this can give you some good insight and good awareness of what you're dealing with. If you've not already hit the subscribe button, I would encourage you to do so. I consider it a privilege that you would allow me to be on your growth journey with you. If you have a need for therapy, and I know many times when you're trying to sift through these traumas and the bonding and then unbonding from that, it may be that you'll be able to benefit with someone who could help you out with this. I'm so pleased that I've been sponsored now for years by the people at BetterHelp.com. There's a link below. And if you go through the link, you get a 10% discount on your first month. And there's a whole team of licensed professional therapists that could help you. And if that's a need that you would have, I would strongly encourage you to go in that direction. Likewise, I've put together therapeutic courses. It's like signing up for an online class. And each course has multiple videos with written documents and guided questions. We have Ready, Set, Connect about making good connection skills. This is me about establishing those boundaries, free to be, finding yourself despite the controllers. We also have my webinars that I've already presented, but they're still available for your purchase. We also have my Surviving Narcissism podcast, our website with many articles on there, and then my books. So there are plenty of resources there. What you don't want is to maintain the bond with a narcissist, particularly when there's been trauma. And the best thing that you can do is you can define yourself and say, you do not have control over my life. That's something that I'm going to claim, and I'm going to take my life in a much better direction. I hope that that's something you can commit yourself to as fervently as you can. And in doing so, I'm hoping it could lead you to a place of true peace.